What is the best aftermarket steering wheel for your race car? The answer? OMP 310 ALU GT. The reasoning is a little bit complicated, but if you give me a couple minutes, I'll explain to you why. So the OMP 310, or the OMP Racing Volante 310 ALU GT, is a $459 steering wheel that, despite its name, OMP 310, is actually 315 millimeters wide in diameter. The steering wheel, for some reason, every version of them we've bought, at least in the US, seem to come with a really tattered box. So what makes the steering wheel so great? And why do we think it's the best steering wheel for race cars? So despite all the negatives that I listed, the steering wheel is actually quite versatile. The steering wheel itself has provisions for multiple different types of mounting. So car guys will recognize the 6-bolt hole pattern that you usually see with your quick release or your Momo style hubs. But you also see here that they have 3-bolt holes that are used for karting or Formula style cars. The one drawback is because of the modularity, you're going to have to drill the holes yourself, which is pretty easy to do. You just have to get a drill bit, or you can use a drill press. You don't necessarily need to countersink the holes like this, but it is a relatively easy process to modify this steering wheel. So one of the other cool things that we can see is that there are provisions for buttons, and these actually are for standard button sizes. So the standard button size here will fit something like an auto P9 switch, something like this that you may be familiar with. And this allows you to mount all the buttons right to the face of the wheel and then have your electronics right there, rather than having to worry about creating some sort of fascia or mounting system in order to do all that. This is available right from the factory. I think one other part that's really important to mention with the steering wheel is the geometry of the steering wheel itself, because it has a flat bottom here. A lot of track guys and race car guys know that when you start modifying the car and you start adding a bucket seat, especially when you like to tilt the seating angle back, the clearance for your knees and the steering wheel, it gets really tight there, especially if you're gonna have to do any type of heel toe work. So having a flat bottom here like this, it's not very common, but you see it in some of the other offerings from like OMP, for example, the OMP Super Quadro. I believe Sparco has a couple examples of that, but this will give you a little bit more clearance while you're in the cockpit. The last point that I want to mention is that the OMP 310 is really popular in the aftermarket community. It's used for race cars and track cars / time attack cars, but you're also seeing it in sim racing builds and on YouTube all the time. A lot of people make DIY videos and create really cool projects using this steering wheel as a base. I know I mentioned before that you do not need a face plate or some sort of 3D cap for the plate in order to mount your buttons because of the geometry of the steering wheel, but there are really cool modifications out there. So if you're looking for a steering wheel for your race car project, you should definitely check the steering wheel out.